Hello everyone, my name is Nicolas Massart and I'm working as a DocOps engineer at a Consensus Ethereum blockchain company. One aspect of my work is providing the tools for writers to write documentation, and this includes setting tests in the continuous integration system to make sure the quality of the doc is correct. And we are going to discuss about one aspect of this today, which is the links and making sure the links in the docs are working, are correct, are up to date. The first issue we think about when we discuss about links is a broken link. A broken link is usually a link targeting a non-existent content, which results into a 404 HTTP code error, and this can be solved by fixing the link, putting the new address. But there's other issues with links. Sometimes you can also have a restricted access. And this restricted access does not mean that the content doesn't exist or that the link is wrong, but it just means that you don't have access to it and that you need some authorization to access the content. Links are very important for the web because it's what makes a fabric. The web invented by Tim Berners-Lee is a waiving of the hyperlink, a DNS system, HTTP, HTML, and all this together makes a community content possible. One important thing to know is that if we break these links, if we have dead ends, then we have an issue with the web itself. And making some links able to be visible only to some people or some tools is a way to break the neutrality and the interoperability of the network. In this quote, Tim Berners-Lee talks about the net neutrality, which is more about the access to the network itself. But don't forget that once you're on the network, what you can do with it is also important, and being able to navigate from one side to the other is very important, but also being able to make sure that the quality of your site is correct by checking its relationship with others, by checking the links with others is also something that should be able to be done by anyone. And in the current context, because of denial of service attacks, mostly, people are trying to protect themselves from bots that are crawling their websites or trying to attack. But the side effect of that is that bots that are looking for links and checking that the content exists for quality reasons are also impacted. And this impact leads to either not checking the links or having to let big companies that would be allowed to do so. So, for instance, Google with the Google Search Console or with the Google Search robots are allowed to bypass this protection from, for example, Cloudflare, and individual would have to be allowed and put in a list alongside Google to be able to check these links also. So the best we can do for the moment is to prevent this kind of links, but if you don't have the choice, you will end up with having these issues. Checking links requires tools to do so, and I'm going to present you the link checking suite created by Thomas Court. It was released in January 2016 under the ISC license, which is the equivalent of the BSD license. It's based on Node.js, which is an open source software too. This suite is composed of Markdown Link Check, and which is the main tool you're going to use to check your Markdown documentation. There's a Markdown link extractor, which is the logic to detect the links in your doc. And there's also a link checker, which can be used individually or with other markup than Markdown, which is just the link checking part, and where the logic of the HTTP is implemented, but also the checks for local files or email addresses. The Markdown Link Check project on GitHub is pretty easy to install. You just have to run the npm install command, or you can also run it through Docker, or even have it as a Github Action. This Github Action, by the way, is provided by another developer. GitHub, the GitHub also shows some ways to use the software with the configuration values, setting the timeout, the headers, how to ignore some links with patterns, how to replace some of them, and how to provide a base URL or the way to retry on 429 HTTP codes, which is just a retry later code for website that requires you to go slower. You can also disable some links by just putting a comment in your Markdown. You will also find some samples and how to use it on the command line directly. Using Markdown Link Check on the command line is pretty easy. You can pass the name of the file to check, or a list of files, and you will find all the options available for this command line. It's mostly the same as what you can find in the configuration file. The configuration file is a JSON configuration file, and it reuses the options available on the JavaScript. So here is how to run Markdown Link Check directly on your project. So I tested into my Tessera project. It just requires npm CI install or npm install. It's the same thing, but here npm CI is what's more suitable for CI. And you just have to run the command line using Markdown Link Check. The -c option is for the configuration, and I'm going to check the doc index. Here, the doc has one failure on the tutorial Quorum Dev Quick Start, which returns a 400 issue. Now that we found this 400 issue, we're going to try to search it in the file. So it's in the docindex.md. And by opening the file, we will be able to fix and edit and fix the issue. So here it is on this line, and you can see that Quorum Dev Quick Start is not a correct Markdown link, so it should target the file directly. So we add the MD extension here. And now we're going to run the test again. And the file is correct. So we have the links correctly checked. They both return 200 codes, and we have two that returns 0 because they are links that are ignored in the configuration file. Now this is one way to run Markdown Link Check locally, but you can also run it in the CI. So for instance, in your pull request, when you are pushing your content change on GitHub, and you can see that when you have all these files and change, you will be able to have check running. and the check here passed, hopefully. And there's the Markdown Link Checker. You can see also there's build veil Markdown link, but here we're only going to talk about the link checker. And these links can be checked during your CI, so continuous integration process. Here I'm using Circle CI, but you can use whatever you want. On this pull request 3.8, I have the link checker step, and this step worked correctly. Now let's see how it was configured. So in the Circle CI folder on the project root, we have a configuration file, and this configuration file has multiple steps, and one of them is in the jobs checking the links. So this job is going to be executed on a Node executor, which is a Docker container, which is going to run Node 12.9. And this job is going to be part of the workflow in our final CI process. So this job is going to check out the project with git checkout, and also check out the submodules, because we have submodule on this one. It's a project that has the same layout than others, so we share all the templates and configuration, and including the CI. It's going to install then the packages using npm CI, but you can use npm install, but I advise you to use npm CI, and it's going to run the test link script. Then it's going to save the cache and store the artifacts. The link here to the pull request is going to show you the artifacts, and in this artifacts it's all the output from Markdown Link Check. It's the same as the one we had in the command line. So here is the artifact, and this is a text file named linkchecker.out, and you can see all the pages that were checked for with all the links, and everything worked fine. So either we had status 200 or just no hyperlink found, so nothing to test. And this file is also including all the outputs of the address that were tested. And once this is done, the npm test run, we're going to see it's a script from the package.json. So this package.json, as said, it's a project with some shared content. So here it's in a submodule, and this common submodule includes the package.json for all projects. And in this package.json we have scripts, and the first one is the link check script, which runs the link checker against all the file name.md in our project, and excludes things from the module, node modules and environment. So it's Python environment, because we don't want to check that. And it runs the Markdown Link Check executable from the node module with the verbose option, and also the configuration file option. Link check conf.json is a JSON file with all the options to configure the checker. It redirects all the output to a log file, which is linkchecker.out, the one we saw previously, but also to the console, so it's easy to follow the process in the CI when it's running. note that once you have that, you have to include Markdown Link Check in the package.json. So here we are pointing directly to the master branch, but you can also just run the version using a version name like the one for Markdown Lint. But the interesting part is if you have a failure. So here is what happens when you have a CI issue. So this is a nightly workflow that runs every night to check the links on the website. It's not only when you push content, it's checking that everything works fine all the time. So here, for instance, we have Microsoft.com not responding, probably just a timeout issue. And this can be visible on the nightly. And we run this again. And on other nightlies, you can see that the next one is successful. So on this one, this is the next day, we just have everything green here. One important aspect of Markdown Link Check is also being able to use this configuration file. So here we're going to see what's in our command configuration. So it's in the command module, and we have this JSON file. So it's going to exclude, for instance, ignore some patterns like localhost or the local IP address, but it's also going to exclude some private repositories or some address that have DDoS protection on it. And once we have this, we have a nice feature is to be able to run exactly the same CI script locally than on the server. It really helps trying to check and test everything before committing. So in our project, we have a script which runs the link checker job in the CI, and we're going to quickly check how it's done and run the job. So we have this run job, and the job is a parameter of the script, and it's a bash script, and it's going to run circle CI with a configuration file, which is going to, here we have some translation of the configuration file because it's required by SQL CI, but then we execute it, and we pass the job name, and we output all the results in a log file. So let's see how this works. If we go back and we run our script, it's going to run a Docker container. So you have to have a Docker installed on your computer, and it's going to download the Docker image and run all the process in the Docker container. So it can take time depending on your size of documentation, but this is usually the exact same time as on the SQL CI or whatever CI you have, but locally. So now the link checker job succeeded, and we can check for the output. So there's this log file here, and it's the same as what you saw in the artifact, except that you have all the output of your CI script, which requires a bit of search to have only the link checker results, but at least you have all the information on your process, and you can test your script locally, make sure the CI is working well, and check all the links at the same time. So here, this file monitoring has status 200 for this link, and all these links are 200 too. Markdown Link Check can also be run using a Github Action. So you will find one created by Gaurav Nelson that will help you started with this. It's the same as running it through SQL CI, except it runs on GitHub directly. and it's free, of course. You can also run Markdown Link Check as part of Megalinter, which integrates the process, the step in all the checks they do. You are, of course, invited to participate in Markdown Link Check, either by creating an issue if you meet any bug or things that doesn't work. But you can also discuss features here and the roadmap that we are creating. There's a list of issues with priorities in the project section, and you can also create, of course, a pull request if you have anything that you can fix directly. This is the end of this demo, so if you have any question, please do.